Welcome to another episode of the Sensibly Cynical podcast. My name, of course, is Sean. Today is all about wrestling. Yes, WWF turned WWF turned WWE. All that good stuff. I am so stoked to be joined by Shizlansky, a.k.a. Boston Brawler, a.k.a. Blackheart of the Off the Top Ropes podcast and NEW Simulation Wrestling. This guy knows everything wrestling. He is like a living, breathing encyclopedia. WrestleMania 37 is this weekend, so we're going to talk about the history of WrestleMania from the first one all the way to predictions on the upcoming matches. So, if you are a fan of wrestling or even a novice and want to learn all about it, this episode is for you. So, it's time for the all wrestling edition of Sensibly Cynical. All right, everybody. Joining me now, he is part of Off the Top Ropes podcast and in charge of NEW Simulation Wrestling, Shizlansky, a.k.a. Boston Brawler. What's good, man?
Thank you for having me, man. Much love, much appreciation, man, for the podcast, man. Sensibly Cynical podcast. I'm back with it. This is round 2. Let's get it. Also, just one thing, another alias is just Blackheart, but y'all know how we do it over the other side of town.
There you go.
This is WrestleMania season. I think we should go off to what people remember of why they became wrestling fans, or at least the lap fans. At least they remember wrestling to that one big event. Extravaganza on them all. We're going to talk about WrestleMania here today.
All right, sounds good to me, man. So, what I remember at WrestleMania originally, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, when Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant, a lot of people didn't see that coming.
I mean, people really did see this coming.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, WrestleMania wasn't just one thing that was planned for so many years. It was like a one-shot deal. In the very first place, Vince McMahon just had this vision that he wanted to go big. He wanted to make it something like a extravaganza show, and hence what WrestleMania was all about. WrestleMania 1 to where we're going off WrestleMania 3 to the time that you're talking about, he had put everything, every dime, every resource on the line. That first one when it came to Hulk Hogan, Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff, So if it wasn't for that first WrestleMania being sold in closed circuits, which means people have to go to movie theaters to watch this thing, and really sold out, and they had 1 million viewers of that one first WrestleMania that got them out there, and that's how we kickstart this whole WrestleMania every year being the biggest extravaganza of them all.
The WWF, that was before that, right?
WWF, the Worldwide Wrestling Federation, was his father's company. Was Vincent Kennedy McMahon Sr. So Vince McMahon's father was previously the owner of that company, and then he has sold the company to his son. He had his own vision. I think it was just taking the matter upon himself and how he visioned it to be this one big show that it would get people talking like the people have talking about Super Bowl every year, the World Series every year, the NBA Finals every year. He wants wrestling to be part of that category, and he greatly achieved it.
What's your favorite WrestleMania moment from the earlier years?
If I really had to look back and we had to rewatch older matches, it was definitely Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Monster and Randy Savage. That was the one that gravitated most fans. Like, oh my God, this match from beginning to end was psychology beautiful, and from both guys, nonetheless. Wrestling for the Intercontinental Championship,
right,
at that time, which was the workhorse title, the second tier to be shown that he's going to be the next star,
right,
and that was a key component to that event. People might say that Hogan and Andre sold the show, but it was really Savage and Steamboat that stole the show.
Yeah, because I know Macho Man, God rest his soul, he's no longer around with us either. I know a lot of wrestlers have died recently, older people. So he was one of my guys. Like, I had some core guys back in the day, but I didn't start watching wrestling until he was much older in WCW. But when I did some, research on him, like, he was one of those cornerstone people in the wrestling industry.
He was. The Mount Rushmores of the 80s, you would definitely have to put his face on that. Those are the matches that I remember. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 12, 16-minute Iron Man match for the title. That was beautiful. I was 6 watching that.
Yeah.
And whoever that was not watching that match was not truly a fan or was not a fan of that match. Something was wrong with them. Then WrestleMania 13, Austin versus Bret in a submission match where Austin became the wrestler that he is, and that's how he got the fuck over. Following WrestleMania 14 in my backyard, Boston, Massachusetts. Yes, I was 8 years old and I went to that as a birthday gift. And I see my man Austin win the title in my home field, priceless moment.
Talk about Ultimate Warrior's importance to the company. What do you think his role was back then?
Squeeze whatever money that he can and get things his way. Yes, I have to say that because it actually was true. Some people say he was difficult to work with. Other people say he didn't make no sense, that he was only speaking from a third-person perspective, so basically talking from his warrior perspective, not his Jim Harrow's persona. So you know how the whole quote art imitates reality. He was one of those people that it blended in to where we don't know what his real self is, and where the Ultimate Warrior begins. So, but he created some moments for the company. So I can't say anything too negative about that. It's not like he didn't do anything bad or negative that made me look at some type of way. I think just behind the scenes behavior, I kind of diminished how people have looked at him even after all these years, even after his passing. He's been gone for 10 years. So
he was intense in real life and in front of the cameras. That's just what I heard, that he was just an intense guy.
And literally, he changed his name. Well, that's really going too far. Was
that he got so enveloped into this alternate reality that it became his reality. A lot of kids liked him because, he would what would he do with the top rope? He would shake it.
He would shake the top rope. He would run around the ring just like a crazy madman. Give me a little brief history on the WrestleMania history real quick. So for the beginner, the rookie, the novices of the world of wrestling that do not know, there's 37 WrestleManias out there. Hence the one that I'm including that's coming out in the matter of a week. Before this whole thing has started, we got to think about the territories. Now, before WWE, WWF, it was part of territories, different territories of promotional wrestling companies, such as World Class Championship Wrestling, based on Dallas, Texas, FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling, Jim Crockett Promotions, whose main hub was Atlanta, Georgia, and several others, including the NWA, was spread all over the country. So there's over 100 promotions throughout the 1950s and 1980s/90s, which started dying out beginning in 1984. That's what Vince McMahon, the old man that we know, the old man that me, Dukes, and dozens of other people on my show, Off the Top Rope Podcast, talk massive shit about, he purchased the WWF from his father and redubbed it WWF, World Wrestling Federation. Boom. So this is when cable TV had just came into town, and it changed the wrestling population and popularity in 1984 forever. Then you have the likes of Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, Andy Warhol, Mr. T, and that's when MTV was one of those main premium music channels, and wrestling was trying to get a good footing in the cable, hence the whole rock and roll connection that happened on MTV back in the day. This is for some of your older folks, by the way. Of course, some people may know this televised event called the War to Sell the Score, which was the main event was Hulk Hogan versus Roddy Piper. That match had led on to the very first WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden on March 31st, 1985. That was the transitional period from wrestling, for what it was professional wrestling, that Vince McMahon had transitioned that over to what we call it now today, sports entertainment. So hence that phrase right there. So blame Vince for all this. Do not look at wrestling as every wrestling promotion is going to do the same thing. No, there's actually real professional wrestling out there. You just have to look real deep in the haystack and try to find this thing, folks. So please bear with that. So hence, Smoky Mountain Wrestling, which was run by one Jim Cornette, Mama's Boy, of course, Jim Crockett Promotions, that got bought out by Ted Turner and was rechristened in WCW. So that's how that whole transition had happened. And Vince put a lot of resources and money into WrestleMania 1. That he achieved it, as I said earlier in this episode, with the 1 million viewers. That's how it got catapulted. And that's why they want to do it again, in WrestleMania 2. That's when it started becoming a year-to-year special event. Now it's starting to go into more closed circuit syndications in LA, Chicago, and New York. They got the celebrities, like William Perry, The Fridge, Ray Charles, Daryl Dawkins. You got Aretha Franklin singing at WrestleMania 3 in her own backyard of Detroit, Michigan. That's when WrestleMania 3, Andre versus Hulk. And year after year after year, it just travels to different main key places to try and get more exposure, trying to get more money, and more partnerships. WrestleMania 4 and 5 was in Atlantic City, Trump Towers. Hence why Vince McMahon and Donald Trump are so much goddamn friends. Why? Because they have a special partnership with each other in the matter of their friendship. Great minds think alike, right? WrestleMania 6, Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan. But this was the first WrestleMania that kind of transitioned over to other country boundaries. Hence why it went to Canada. Mm-hmm. WrestleMania 7 was kind of what I kind of want to dub it a patriotic WrestleMania because of the war in Iran in 1991. See, each year, it goes by a certain theme. WrestleMania goes by certain themes each year. This year, that WrestleMania 7 was patriotic because of the war in Iran, the Gulf War, and that situation that was going over there at that time. And they had created the character of Sergeant Slaughter. You remember him, right? The anti-American nemesis to Hulk Hogan. It had a picture with him and Saddam Hussein and shit like that.
Yeah.
That's how it grew out of control because it became unsafe that they were doing it outside sports arena where they could feel like they could get attacked at that time period. Hence, what the Super Bowl that year did the same thing too. The Buffalo Bills versus the New York Giants. I don't know if you remember that Super Bowl, but that's the first of many forefalls of the Buffalo Bills. WrestleMania 8, we could have got ourselves a dream match between Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, who had left WCW to come up to WWF at the time with the World Heavyweight Championship belt, and that's what people wanted to see. The dream match. Who's really the best person in the ring for the title on the line? We didn't get that because of management. WrestleMania 9 is where they start getting the real theming and introducing the Tongas and Roman Empires and stuff like that. This is all the Season Powers. Bret Hart had dropped the belt to Yoko. Yoko, 5 minutes later, drops the belt to Hulk Hogan.
Yokozuna was part of the Samoan dynasty, right?
Yes, he was.
So that's what I thought. So go ahead.
WrestleMania 10, which it comes back to Madison Square Garden. The place where it started all, of course. Hence, with the historical, rather match between Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels was about, right? We all know about that one, and I do too. I had to be 4 years old watching that pay-per-view as well. And this is where we see it now become a year-to-year annual special attraction, more eyeballs, more celebrities, more popularity, more closed circuits, these pay-per-views, which means you're actually purchasing it back in the day to the black box and calling them your cable provider and all this other stuff.
Back in the day, were they getting people, I know Brock Lesnar is way, way, way down the line, but back in the day, were they getting guys that were not saying real wrestling, but were they getting guys, grapplers, to go to WWF? Were they recruiting back then? Or was it not much recruiting? Was it like homegrown stuff, like territories?
I think the majority of the locker room for a certain time period was all homegrown people that had been there since either their territory was bought out or they left their territory and they stayed up there for the majority of the time.
Yeah. WrestleMania 10, what was the main event of that one?
Actually, there was 2 main events that evening. At first, it was Lex Luger versus Yokozuna for the WWE title, and whoever won that faced Bret Hart later on that night as the main event.
Let's talk about Lex Luger. Was he one of those WCW guys, right?
He was a WCW guy who came to WWE, went back and forth, but he came up there after he had a stint with WCW back in the day, in the late 80s. He came up there as a narcissist. And I believe in 1992.
I remember him like putting people in the rack, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, man. I always thought that was cool. He was one of those guys that, again, he wasn't a super good talker on the mic, but his actions spoke louder than words. You know, he was also one of those larger than life guys.
Indeed.
He never got to Warriors level popularity, but he was up there for a run.
Yes.
Totally. So he faced Yokozuna. Now, we briefly mentioned him. What made Yokozuna so popular? Do you know?
He was the nephew of the Head Shrinkers. And because he was a Samoan, you know, he had wrestling experience, or he had that wrestling blood in him, and they see his work, and for a big guy, for him that can move, the agile before the real weight gain, he was unstoppable, and they really wanted to bring him up to WWF, but they needed something else to give him, and they thought about wanting him being a Samoan. And since he can get away with being a Samoan because he had long hair and he had a big persona, and they built him to make him like this unstoppable moving giant. And that's something that even Andre the Giant couldn't do because of his size. So with Yoko, he had something different. He had a hard work ethic, and he made things look believable for a big guy that he looked like he could terrify and whip someone's ass. That's how we got over. And that's why he was a beloved big guy, but he worked harder than any other big guy at that time period back then.
So we get to 11.
So by this time period, this is when WWF at the time was starting to try to get massive growth. They're trying to get more involved in the community base. That's why the whole WWF Access was born, to give opportunity to fans to come in to have a great weekend experience and such like that. And at the same time period, this is when the Hall of Fame ceremony was created and born. Hence why WWE has its own Hall of Fame. WrestleMania 11, your main event to that was Lawrence Taylor, the famous defensive end from the New York Giants, going one-on-one with Bam Bam Bigelow.
Bam Bam Bigelow. There's another one that brings me back. This was when WrestleMania really, really picked up steam globally, you said, right?
Yes.
The thing about Vince McMahon is, whether you like him or you don't like him, he seemed to be ahead of the curve, especially back then. You know, how do you get this deal? You know what I mean? He was a dealer's dealer, you know?
He wanted a guy in Ric Flair. Ric Flair was kind of pissed off at WCW about how they was treating him and wanted to leave. And he was like, well, if you come up here, then you'll be offered this much and this, that, and the third. You know, how to deal with things that way.
He had a big ego, right, Vince? He still does, right?
You didn't want to hear my opinion about that, so next question.
Well, let's see. So what was WrestleMania 17?
WrestleMania 17 was 2001.
Yeah, okay. What was the main event of that?
Stone Cold versus The Rock, which was for the title, and this was the second bout. Number 2, Rock and Austin.
Yeah, let's talk about, I know we talked about the Samoan Dynasty, so The Rock, how was The Rock related to Yokozuna?
Rock and Yokozuna were cousins.
Cousins, okay. So The Rock was this player out of Miami, right? He had the physical tools. He went to Miami to play football. Now,
yes, he did.
And then, of course, everyone knows this. I think Stone Cold's the one guy that we don't have to dissect on this podcast. Everyone knows Stone Cold.
Of course.
So what was it about that rivalry that was so cool?
It was the chemistry. It was the chemistry that both the guys had, but not when it comes to WrestleMania. You have to look at the earlier stuff that they had before when they was facing off against each other for the IC championship. And you can see that there was a spark there that they had, that it was like, okay, we got something great here. Now, if we can manifest these two and keep them away like an actual like boxing fight, and we bring them back later when they're both in their primes, we can get something great out of it. And we got in WrestleMania 15, which was the very first bout between the two of them in the main event, nevertheless. And that sold out. And then you have to do it again at some point. You have to get the people what they want.
Of the two, The Rock and Stone Cold, who do you think had the better career?
No comment to that because they both have the same caliber.
About equal?
Yes.
Am I missing any big matches from the teens? We're not talking about all the way until WrestleMania 19?
I can give you a few, which we already kind of said that already. We already said Bret Hart. It was Steve Austin. It was built about to be a star. Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in my backyard. The wrestling era has begun, so was the Attitude Era. WrestleMania 15, as we said before, Rock and Austin won. WrestleMania 16 was a fatal four-way elimination match. Rock, Triple H, Big Show, and Mick Foley. WrestleMania 17 was Rock and Austin 2. WrestleMania 18, there was the two main events, as I really would have dubbed. Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, Chris Jericho versus Triple H for the Undisputed title. And then we go up to WrestleMania 19, which was Rock and Austin 3, which was definitely the final one. And fun fact, folks, if you ever look at his vest on at WrestleMania 19, where he has the OMR at, that's abbreviation for one more round, indicating he was about to be done. After that match, he was done. He was going into retirement. So who would have thought that he had a subliminal message on his vest that no one ever thought about? Wow, that shocked me. And and of course, the main event of that one was Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle for the Undisputed title.
Right, was that the one where Brock Lesnar failed the Shooting Star Press?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, we can talk about Brock Lesnar right now. He was, and still is, a once-in-a-lifetime athlete, right?
First person I know that can actually do WWE, done achieving what he wanted to do, get bored, leave, try to go to the NFL, didn't make it, but decided to go to USC and found himself in a better situation, made money, didn't have to see people, didn't have to deal with anyone, train whatever the fuck he wanted to, go make his dates, and go back home.
Yeah, so Brock Lesnar, for those that don't know, he won the NCAA College Championship Wrestling at Minnesota. He won the UFC World Heavyweight Champion against Randy Couture. Am I wrong on that?
I believe he was right on the money with it.
WrestleMania 20, was that the one that... Actually, you know what? Before we get to WrestleMania 20, let's talk about Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid. For those that don't know, Shawn Michaels is probably on the Mount Rushmore of top wrestling superstars. Would you agree with that?
Oh, are you kidding me? There's no fucking question. He is part of the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling. In my eyes. Performances at WrestleMania alone stands and tells the tale of his legacy.
What are some other matches besides Undertaker that Shawn Michaels is known for at WrestleMania?
Bret Hart, WrestleMania 12. As I said it before, that's just an undeniable one. Him versus Chris Jericho, WrestleMania 19 was one of my favorite matches of that whole card. I would have to say this is not a WrestleMania moment, but him versus Mankind, India House, Mind Games, 1996. That match, if you ever take a look at that match, please watch it. You will instantly become a fan of why Mankind back then was the greatest thing to me in my eyes in 1996. Because he brought a different style that he challenged you to do something different in your matches. And that's what his style brought to the table. It brought something different from Michaels. And that's something that we never had seen before. Quote me on it.
So he was one of those workers kind of worker. Like he could make anyone have a good match. Hell, he made Chris Masters have a good match. I remember that pay-per-view. He made Chris Masters have a good match. Now, if you can make Chris Masters have a decent match, you're a legend. We'd be remiss if we don't talk about his rivalry with Triple H. Did they have a WrestleMania match?
They shared one together at WrestleMania 20.
Well, let's talk about WrestleMania 20. That's where we're at. So, what was your favorite match of that card?
Number one would definitely have to be Eddie Guerrero versus Kurt Angle, because that match was beautiful, and I didn't even think Eddie had even a chance to win, and somehow Mommy won. That was a great WrestleMania feel. Number two was when Chris Benoit won the World Heavyweight title against Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Eddie Guerrero came out, his best friend, and hugged him, and in the confetti falls, in the balloons, the Madison Square Garden, the best go home feeling in any pay-per-view history that I have ever felt. And two best friends celebrate both their title wins together in the same ring. Beautiful, man. Like, there's nothing compared to that. Number 3 was the return of my Undertaker versus Kane. As the dead man, I was like, yes, he's back.
Mm-hmm. So the Undertaker and Kane, brothers of destruction, right?
Yes, there was.
Now, Undertaker, a.k.a. Mark Calloway, he was Vince McMahon's go-to workhorse. Whenever Vince McMahon needed someone in a pinch, he would go to the Undertaker for a main event match.
Man, listen. Undertaker is my favorite wrestler of all time, hands down. There's no arguing with me about this. He is not only just the main person that Vince McMahon depended on, he was the locker room leader. He was the advice guy. He was the guru of WWE. And no one can ever take that away from him. If it wasn't for him, he would never been made so many damn stars. He would never made Jeff Hardy. He would never made Triple H. He would never even made Austin. He would have said, Vince, they're not ready yet. And he would have been, no, go ahead, kid. You got a little bit more work to do, but you're getting there. And I see that in you. And he can tell you right the fuck away if you got it or not. And that's why he's so fundamental in WWE, but most importantly to Vince McMahon.
Yeah, and then his brother Kane, who's one of my favorite wrestlers. I remember watching. Did you ever watch the First Blood match with him and Steve Austin?
Yes.
That shit
King of the Ring, 1998.
That shit was so great. John Cena started getting big in the 20s.
Yes. I would say WrestleMania 20, where Abu Dhabi his coming out party. That was when he had won the United States Championship from the Big Show.
I remember that because that was the opener, right? That was the opening match.
Yes, it was.
And, this wasn't PG Attitude Adjustment, Cena. This was Thug Life, FU.
Dr. Thuganomics.
Yeah, so which version of John Cena you think drew more money?
I mean, he was getting over when he was in the Doctor of Thuganomics. I think he started drawing the money till I think 2005 when he had won the championship. I think that's when they said, okay, we're going to put the belt on Cena. He's the new version of Superman for us. So we built him up to be the Superman. We can go after the kids. And go after the kids means more money. Now you're not just looking at just the teenage demographic anymore. Now you're looking at the adults. Here's where we see the changes in WWF to WWE. And now it's starting to be more diluted entertainment, but it's still giving some surprise factors and aspects. But you still had the stars. John Cena was the new emerging star.
Right.
Coming into his own.
Right, and then that's
2005.
And then you had Randy Orton, Batista in that time frame.
Yes, sir.
Is there any match in the 20s that you want to talk about, like late 20s?
The only matches that stood out in my head at the time period was the Undertaker matches, because that was when we see gold. This is when we see the yearly gold every year, that no matter what, Undertaker was going to defend history no matter who called him out, and he was going to come and accept it, and he was going to give a hell of a match. So I was happy for him versus CM Punk, him versus Shawn Michaels twice, him versus Triple H twice, even him versus John Cena at WrestleMania 30, I believe. Excuse me. That was afterwards, the one in New Orleans. The WrestleMania 30 where he lost the streak to Brock Lesnar was the one that I kind of said, damn, I was shocked that I didn't know how to feel. But at the end, I kind of learned to accept it, because at some point you have to lose. So I just said it was the wrong person to lose to. I said, if you would have gave the win to either Cena or someone that needed to win the most to try to catapult their career, like CM Punk needed that moment, that could have helped him in a big way. But that didn't. You gave it to the wrong person. So that's what I got to say about that.
That's when, the 20s, I mean, that's when The Undertaker started getting to those matches where he would be like once a year, right?
I think by 24, it started to be once a year.
And, I think Triple H is getting there now.
No, Triple H has been there, man. He's not going back into the ring. I think he knows it now. Like, there's no way I can go back into the ring right now. Like, even with my experience, I don't think my body is even prone to it now.
Yeah, well, let's go to 30, and we can talk about CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. Which one do you want to talk about first, CM Punk or Daniel Bryan?
Let's just go to CM Punk first, since he didn't last that long.
All right, so about CM Punk, Phil Brooks. What is it about him that you think drew, money?
His mouth. He was a great talker. Second was definitely his ring ability. I think third, he knew what the WWE infrastructure. Basically, he was really stone cold with just in another man's body, but he was outspoken about the indifferences, about, certain people getting pushed, and other hardworking people that's been there for years that hadn't got an opportunity. That could be the opportunity for them. I think he was one of those people that was being stigma too by the corporate machine. And he's one of those people that, I guess what he has said, the voice of the voiceless. So for people that can't speak up for themselves, they feel like they're being fucked over by their boss or they're being fucked over by a company. I think he connected to the audience that way, that it's okay for you to speak up and go to management and say, yo, this is not right. And you need to kind of fix this. And as we kind of see it now, how many other people have we known now that are more outspoken at their workplaces because they see some racial injustice or interpromotional differences or whatever the case may be, and to be a lot more outspoken about it because they want to see a change. And we, as a wrestling audience, want that change. We want to see the better in-ring performer guys being built. Not the same guy that you've been pushing us for the last 10 years. He's just saying the things that we couldn't say or WWE are ignoring us. And didn't want us to say, oh, no, how's a fucking thing, I think that's what Phil Brooks did for us.
Right, because we can talk about his infamous promo on Monday Night Raw. That was one of those, oh my God moments.
Yeah.
When he sat in, Indian style and just went off.
He was on top of the stage in a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt with a microphone in his hand. John Cena laid out in the ring, who was just recently crashed to a table. Hey, man, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I got a lot of shit I got to get off my chest. And he went off the rails. And whoever would have thought the pipe bomb is what really underlined his name, like, oh, shit. That was real as it come.
Do you think him and Ultimate Warrior are similar personalities?
No. The difference between Ultimate Warrior and CM Punk was this. Ultimate Warrior wanted more money and quicker matches, like Brock Lesnar does. CM Punk wanted the next person to get pushed up with him so they could be better. Or he wanted a certain booking so he could be booked somewhere down the line where he could see him versus Daniel Bryan to be treated as Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart. Mm-hmm. So that could draw more money and that could build his stock and Daniel Bryan's stock. He was more into what was best for business, but at the time period, it wasn't best for business because they looked at him as an outspoken person who just didn't know how to shut up. That was the difference.
All right. So, speaking of Daniel Bryan Danielson, he is your ultimate indie guy. Went up to Ring of Honor and places like that where, him and Cesaro and Rollins and stuff. So, Daniel Bryan was one of those guys that, from the Northwest, Seattle area, all he knew was wrestling. That's it. What was your thoughts on Daniel Bryan?
First thing I thought was, who the hell is this short guy with a very long chin? And him and The Miz is just going at it, like cats and dogs, and that's how they built the little rivalry. But it took me like a year or two to get used to him, and I could say, now put him, then you start fancy booking, he can work well with him and him. And we see it kind of happen, you're like, oh my God. Yo, I was kind of stunned about his in-ring performance. Forget about his gimmick, his in-ring performance is what attracted me to him. There's certain people that can get you gimmick-wise. There's certain people that can get you moveset-wise. There's certain people that can get you on the microphone. Mm-hmm. He's one of those people that can get me on the microphone and in the ring. But as for the gimmick, I say just let him be his damn self. And but they kind of joke around with his persona so many times. But
right, so he won the title.
The most underdog person in WWE's history in the last 10 to 15 years.
So he beat Randy Orton and Batista in the same match at WrestleMania 30 after beating Triple H.
Yes, he did.
So they really went for the push for him, you know.
Oh, the fans pushed for him bad. This is what they was giving the audience what they want. The Yes Movement.
All right, so as we wind down here, let's talk about the Women's Revolution, and then we can talk about the upcoming WrestleMania. Does that sound good, or is there anything else you want to touch on before we get to the Women's Revolution?
Nah, man, it's cool. We can go to it.
All right, so the Women's Revolution, you know, I think it started with Chyna, Lita, Trish Stratus, and then they went into, you know, what was it, like pudding matches and stuff? They went, you know, they went into gimmick matches. Why do you think they brought back the women's wrestling, like, you know, big time?
Because we're looking at a society where equal opportunity is going to say a lot of things. And there were some female wrestlers out there in the world that just didn't get pushed right or didn't just receive the opportunity. Hence where, you know, the later generations, I got to skip the whole 10s because there's nobody really in the 10s besides maybe Michelle McCool and maybe Maurice. But if I can skip through that, I say when Charlotte came in, I say when Sasha, Bayley, and Becky and them came in, that was really where I think it was like, okay, we need to take notice. And these women were put on hellacious matches in NXT that you're like, oh my God. When they go to the main roster, they're going to be built up like this. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, Charlotte was the first one to get skyrocketed.
Right.
Then Sasha, then Bayley, then Becky. Then you see Asuka coming into the picture, which that's my personal favorite because she had everything. And the technical wrestler that I just said, you know, majority of the Japanese style wrestlers, you know, strong style and submission. So that's a deadly combination to even face with. And outside of WWE too, like there's a few of them that's out there as well. Kairi Sane, there's a few of them that's out there. Kylie Ray, who used to work for Impact Wrestling too. There's a few people. Even Jordan Grace, she works for Impact Wrestling, and her contract's about to come up. Right. She's gonna be a free agent. You never know what she's gonna end up being. So there's talent out there.
Yeah, I hate to be. You know, we got to give credit to Ronda Rousey too.
No, I can't give credit to her either. No? That's like bringing Mike Tyson into the ring and teaching him how to wrestle, and then somehow you just force him down our throats. I can't accept that.
Okay, so I know you can give credit to Trish Stratus and Lita, though. Talk about them.
Yeah, okay, fine. I can do that. Trish and Lita were basically the 2-in-1 package deals. They got over in the ring, but they got over with their characters. And, of course, this was Attitude Era, so it was highly sexual in our faces every week. So, yeah, of course they got the fuck over. But it was really the 2000s that was where you see their in-ring ability more. And you see that they can give off great psychologically planned matches. And who wouldn't love to see those two win respectable championships and having their own rivals with each other? Best friends going at it. And they give a hellacious match. And he was the first to ever main event in Monday Night Raw for the women's title. And that got one of the highest ratings in that modern wrestling history at that time period. Hall of Famers, no questions about it. They deserve to be on the Mount Rushmore of female wrestlers of all time. No question. The other two heads, I can't even give you them names right now.
Yeah, well, let's talk about some of the recent stars. We got Sasha Banks. I know the ones that people will know probably. Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, Charlotte. Who else do you think is mainstream that people will know?
Well, now you got to give praises to Bianca Belair.
You think she's mainstream yet? Do you think she's mainstream?
Yes, she's coming out of her own. People's going to fall in love with her. and y'all gonna fall in love with the way that she's gonna be just bringing. She's gonna bring that EST to the show, baby. She's one of them. Asuka's gonna be another one. Raquel Gonzalez from NXT, Io Shirai from NXT. Just a few breakout stars that's ready.
Well, let's get to WrestleMania 37. 2 nights in Tampa Bay, Florida. Raymond James Stadium. What's the main event of night one?
The main event of night one is Sasha Banks defending the SmackDown Women's Championship against Bianca Belair.
Talk about that match.
For those who are not keeping up with the current program right now, Bianca Belair had won the Women's Royal Rumble back in January. So she eventually did pick Sasha Banks right away. She kind of mellowed up and placated. There's something between her and Sasha in the tag team match that kind of spilled over, and then she actually said, "You know what? I want to face you instead." And here's where we got the match, and now we see Sasha Banks becoming the heel again. So eventually, as I kind of predicted on my show, Sasha Banks going to have to be the heel in this because I can't see Bianca being a heel, and she got to get over as a babyface. She's the breakout star. She needs to go off and be on television screens right about now. So who better to do that then? We get an African American and a Hispanic women headlining night one of WrestleMania. That's a great achievement. I'm happy for both of these ladies. I can't wait for the match. But I gotta go with Bianca Belair on this one. Mm-hmm. You're gonna put the rocket ship on the back of her. You're gonna send her off to the moon. Get her that notoriety. Get her that exposure.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you might see her start popping up on guest appearances and stuff like that, and then that's when you know this is her moment right here.
What else is on night one? Is Cesaro and Seth Rollins on night one?
I believe they are. I'm not telling you too damn sure, but I know they got me on night one. Cesaro and Seth Rollins. The match I really want to goddamn see. I know they're going to take the roof off with that. So they're going to tell me Seth Rollins is going to win this. But,
and then
let's see what happens.
So what other matches are you looking forward to?
I gotta take a deep look at this roster because majority of these I'm not really looking forward to. I am looking forward to Lashley versus McIntyre. Because for the people who did not know, Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre have faced each other before in Impact Wrestling. So if I can get the same formula here for WrestleMania, I will be oozing with joy.
Well, Lashley's the WWE champion, for people that don't know that.
Yes, he is. He is my black African-American World Heavyweight Champion.
Former MMA champion.
Former MMA champion as well.
Yes. Mixed martial art. He was in Bellator, right?
Yes.
So I mean, he's legit.
He is legit.
I think he's gonna win.
I mean, I'm sorry to hit the kind of burst your bubble right here, right? I mean, right now, as much as I would love to agree with you on that, that's not gonna happen.
You don't think so?
No. No, we're gonna see somebody or something happen that is going to change what the purpose is as we want to see it to where it could go. And I'm kind of looking forward to see, because if I can actually say Naomi needs to do something, you need to put her in there. Keith Lee definitely needs to come back, and he needs to be a heel and join the Hurt Business too.
All right, well, let's go over some matches real quick. Who do you got, Bad Bunny or The Miz?
My God, we really got to be serious with this. I'll give it to the celebrity. I'll give it to Bad Bunny in this one.
Sami Zayn or Kevin Owens?
KO. Kevin Owens, man. This whole Sami Zayn documentary conspiracy theory thing is treacherous.
All right, so who the New Day wrestling against?
New Day is wrestling AJ Styles and Omos for the Raw Tag Team Championships.
And
now I think this is where AJ Styles is going to win it. That he could be the Grand Slam champion of WWE.
He'd be Grand Slam champion of TNA and WWE.
Exactly. So I think if he wins the tag team titles during WrestleMania weekend, he's going to be solidified as a Grand Slam champion in WWE.
Let's get to the last pick, and then we'll close. Who do you got in the Roman Reigns Edge and Daniel Bryan match, and why?
Damn, man, you hit me with a hard one right now. Only because I got a lot of thinking to do with that one. But if I gotta go with thinking, planning, and more importantly, emotional feeling, Daniel Bryan.
All right.
Because if the rumors is true, and I don't know if this is true about this whole retirement talk, but if it does happen, they're going to let him get one more title run before he calls it quits.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put the belt back on Roman, which won't hurt him. He can easily win it back. Mm-hmm. And then you can introduce Jimmy back into the bloodline because he's been injured for X amount of months. So this will be the perfect time for him to come back.
All right. Blackheart, I appreciate you coming on. What do you got with the podcast coming up, man?
Well, on the next podcast, man, we're going to talk about the previous week. What's been going on with wrestling, including Raw, NXT, AEW Dynamite, and Friday Night SmackDown, along with the wrestling news and recap. See what happened, what's going on between Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. See what's going on with Kenny Omega, the Good Brothers, Shawn Moxley, the Young Bucks. Let's see what's going on with Friday Night Slam with Edge, Roman, and Daniel Bryan. And last but not least, NXT is moving to Tuesday nights, starting on April 13th. And we got a big story coming up for that, man. Check this out. Check out the podcast here on Anchor Podcast, Google Podcast, Radio Public Podcast, Breaking Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, Podbean, and YouTube. Follow us on the social medias as well, Off the Top Ropes, on Instagram, Facebook pages, and also on Twitter at off_ropes. And look out for the t-shirts too, man. We're coming out real soon. Black and white and black and red. DM me or email at offthetoprope@google.com to place your orders in for that. And thank you, Sensibly Cynical Podcast, for even allowing me to come back here again.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it, man. And you tell the guys I said what's up, all right?
Oh, I'll tell them, all right.
We made it, man. We made it. All right, bro. I'll talk to you later.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Peace. All right, guys. There you have it. That was an awesome education on professional wrestling. Thanks again to Shiz Lansky for coming on the podcast today. Hope you guys enjoy WrestleMania. It is this Saturday and Sunday. If you could check us out on Twitter at Cynical Sensibly, Instagram Sensibly Cynical Pod, and you can check out our Facebook group. Also, if you could please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, I would be highly, highly appreciative. Okay, that's another episode in the books. Please stay safe, mask up, and take care.